Hey, the work that Blue UK Jazz Dance is doing at the moment is simply I'm bringing a personal perspective and retrospective into UK Jazz Dance from my perspective. I'm the last UK club jazz dancer in Manchester who's still dancing from its early birth in 1975 to now. Now is 2014. I've evolved with all the social dances that we have. First of all, UK club jazz dance is a social dance, and it was part of many other dances that were done in the same place. And it's important people understand that, because many people assume that, guess what, we just isolated ourselves off to doing one dance. No. Black people have many tastes. Within the club, it was part of a bigger scene, and that soul scene was a soul, disco and funk scene, depending where you went. And other places, it was part of the reggae. The important people understand, it was part of the reggae, soul, disco, funk. You understand? Jazz, funk, so and so scene. You need to understand. It evolved with all the social dances that we had. So for example, a club called Legends, they just had jazz breaks there, but the resonant music, the number one music that was played is soul, so everybody could socialize. It's a social dance. So it was soul, disco, funk. Then you had jazz funk, then we had the jazz fusion, basically soul jazz music that was played, there were breaks. Then hip hop came. Then they introduced hip hop into Legends, and then eventually they introduced reggae. Reggae was always there, but that wasn't in the town centre, but eventually reggae was included in the setup in the town centre, in Legends. And there was a whole host of different clubs that had different cultures. So Legends had its own culture. Berlin had its own culture. Nello James was a youth club that was used for dances. 8411 had its own culture. And a beautiful example of 8411 is Foot Patrol in 1986. Boom. A dance there could have not happened without a number of key people. My brother, for example, called Goldie, he created the first dance halls that included dancehall clashes going on, reggae, boom, with the soul, the funk, the disco, bringing talent, showcasing in there, bringing fashion shows. He brought about an intergenerational dancehall feel. So what he would do is put fashion shows on, and that would bring out the elders who would come to a certain times and would go home, and then we'd have the dancehall element part of it. Important. Not one person, myself, Blue UK Club Jazz. I've just come to give a personal perspective, but my personal perspective is more informative than many people who have written or spoken orally about UK Club Jazz Din. Why? Because of my history. I'm one of the individuals who went through a very, very important organisation, key organisation, Black Dance Development Trust. That came for all African diaspora groups, African drumming Caribbean groups, all went to this organisation to raise their game, to gain the knowledge that we weren't getting from any school. They created summer schools, they created showcasings of the leading African diaspora groups in the UK. I came through there. I came through Cantamanto. Cantamanto is a prolific group in Manchester who was led by the late Kwasi Asari, a great percussionist, a great band leader who returned back to his African drumming. He played saxophone, he played with Sun Ra, he played with many of the musicians, he played with Count Basie, Duke Ellington, he played with many musicians of his time. Particularly Manchester. You see, Manchester, 1946 to 1972, people don't know, they were the keepers of the flame of modern music. You have to understand, this city loves music that reflects social change, creates new and positive social identities. That's what UK Club Jazz Dance did. It created social change, new social identities that were positive. It gave us a positive outlook about ourselves, about our culture. And this is what I want to bring through, because what's happened, unfortunately, many individuals didn't understand the dance, and I'm being light-hearted now, because I've identified already there was racism, there was oppression, there was discrimination. There was discriminatory knowledge spread about the dances, the dances from our culture. The domino effect, the dance was seen as a fad, was seen as insignificant. And that is still in the air. No one's challenged that. That's what I've come back to do, challenging with Rebirth for the Cool Zero. Tolerance is challenging discriminatory practices, discriminatory knowledge that was spread past, present and future. I'm here to challenge it, increase people awareness of the domino effects, because what happened, we're people. People are talking to dancers like they're nobodies. So what we have is a demigod status on the scene, that they created the scene, the DJs created the scene, and without the DJs, the dancers would have no place to go, and it's very untrue. Why it's untrue? Because the scene has a reflection of the United States in jazz. Who dominated the scene was mainly Anglo-Saxon males who dominated the scene. So the dancers were exploited just the same way as the dancers were exploited in the US. Promoters, DJs, some proprietors of club spread negatives about this culture as they spread it in the United States, exactly the same way. So there's a lot of duplications of what happened in the United States to people not being able to make money. The tap dancers not making money is the same in United UK. A film that would have changed the lives of the dancers, Absolute Beginners, did not change it because they never used them. And it was that point when this film was coming out in 1986, Absolute Beginners, was a key time because it was at the peak. After 86, the scene was lost overnight. Social problems have risen, people have got older, they never had the chances they want to make. They had to start thinking about their lives, the future, sustainability of economics. Interestingly, exactly like hip-hop in 1986, Manchester lost its scene, the UK lost its scene. Why? Because people didn't see black culture as sustainable, they see it as a trend, as a fad. Quickly exploit it, boom, and get rid of it. That's it. And that's what happened to the dancers. Secondly, they weren't given the leadership and management knowledge in the creative cultural industries to lead it in a sustainable way. So they became dependent on individuals. I myself in 86 went on to lead or to be a founder of Gestures, the first contemporary dance company, and that was a stroke of luck in my own city because my son had been born in 1985. I couldn't really leave the city, but most importantly, black dancers couldn't get a job. I got a job leading the company in my own city, and it offered me the opportunity to be in my city and still play an active role on and around Cantamanto as its arts administrator, arts manager, which was brilliant. No dancer would have had the opportunity I had within other companies because I was basically able to be free in what I did, to do projects like Carlos Acosta's doing now. Many people could have never done that before. Left companies they're major dance stars in and then go and do their own work. It could never happen. They wouldn't have that flexibility. But I had that major, amazing flexibility in my city to still be at the hub of creativity and culture, development, learning, training, underground and in the mainstream. And to cut long story short, what I'm really expressing, one person cannot give a true understanding of the whole history of UK club jazz dance. But I can give an insight to the generic things that are missed out. One, it has a heritage. One, it has a history. Individuals learn lifelong learning, and irony of this was our culture, heritage, used the dance for lifelong learning in the beginning. But because we were denied that knowledge through cultural assimilation education, that is miseducation. Look at 1890. Cultural assimilation education with the Aborigines, the Red Indians, destroys people's lives. So you become inferior, you feel you're nothing. Well, that's what happened in the UK. But what we had was, wow, reggae music came. Our parents, resilience, psychological resilience, social resilience, intellectual resilience, emotional resilience to maintain, celebrating their cultural creativity in the home and outside was revolutionary, and we saw that and we picked that up. So we became revolutionary. So many people didn't even get an education within school. You need to understand, they went to school, parents couldn't understand, how come you've not got an education? This is what I came for. They couldn't understand cultural assimilation education makes you hate yourself. So when you're in the school, you recognize you're trying to make me hate myself, and I'm not going to allow you. But Even in saying that, it was called defocused education. They didn't want us to get an education anyway. But I'm very proud of my parents. I'm proud of what my parents tried to do with me. I'm very proud of my achievements, my benefits, contributions, development. Because one thing my parents told me, you have a culture, always respect that, and told me to respect other cultures. So what that did was open me up to jazz, because jazz is about respecting your culture, your own voice, and respecting other people's voice. That's the beautiful thing of UK Club Jazz. One of the unique selling points of UK Club Jazz Dance. If everybody wants to use it, it's open to cultures. It doesn't shut down. I became a professional dancer, contemporary dancer, and in that contemporary world, some people, they have prejudices. I did ballet, they have prejudices. I did tap, there's prejudices. Rhythm tap or British tap. Russian ballet or British ballet. You need to understand. So I left the mainstream world and went back to my own world, because we were drawing on that anyway, the ballet, the tap, but in an inclusive way. And the people were more real. There was less pretentiousness, because look, I'm coming from the street, you're coming from the street, but coming from a common place that we understand what Earl Hines was saying. Jazz is the voice of oppressed, free people looking for a better quality of life. So that's what I knew when I went to the clubs. That's what people were looking for. I didn't have to ask where they're coming from. I know where they're coming from. We had people in the club from all walks of life. But one thing that was maintained, people were real in the club. And within a society that belittles you socially, physically, intellectually, culturally, emotionally, spiritually, politically, economically, technologically, environmentally, and legally, you need to have a place where you get a sense of belonging with real people. It can't be pretentious. So that's what I was not getting in the real world of dance. In the mainstream world of dance, there was a lot of pretentiousness. And that affects you after a while. Now, some people have that psychological resilience to deal with that. That's good. I come up from a very extended family, a communal value, communal community, where love is important, a sense of belonging, and real people is important, especially when you're learning, especially as dyslexic, who's experienced belittling 24/7, people talking behind your back or ridiculing in your face. You need real people. And I found that among my own peers. Because many of them, some were dyslexic, some weren't dyslexic, but what they did, they didn't belittle me, they didn't put me down, they made me realize, brethren, you can make anything. Because if you think about jazz, how jazz musicians started in New Orleans, they didn't know music. Eventually individuals went on to learn music, like for example Louis Armstrong. But he knew how to play, and he'd been taught to play the oral way. That's how I've been taught as a dancer. And I have that pride. I went on to learn ballet, boom, boom. I read the books, boom, boom. And I respect all them art forms. What I didn't like was the attitude, the values of some of the dancers being pretentious, cutthroat, boom. That's not my world. I have to be in a real world for me to survive. Because I need to be able to talk really about what I feel in my emotions, not holding back and being two-faced or anything. No, I had to say, look, right now, I don't like the way you're dealing with me. I want to be there to freestyle, brethren, I love the way your style is, or sister, you're dancing wicked. And she looks in my eyes, she knows it's real. I'm coming from a real perspective. Anyway, Blue UK Jazz Dance out.